I have the great pleasure of introducing Kimberli Lewis. Stockings and all.
Guess what? I'm going to stand down here.
You're going to stand down there?
Because first of all, I'm too short to stand up there, and I'll also look over the computer. And
Do you have a mic?
is it on?
I don't think that's on
Yeah,
yet.
is it on? The mic. Hello. Yes, it's on. Okay.
There it is.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. And if I stand up there, I might fall off.
Okay. Do you mind if I stand up here?
No, that's
Or sit up here?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll listen from up here. Kimberli Lewis. Nice warm welcome for Kimberli Lewis.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a relief right now because I'm not going to talk about products. I'm not going to talk about websites. I'm not going to talk about apps. I will touch on sales a little bit, but I'm going to talk about something completely different because I want you to take what my message is, go back to your organizations and think about it. Now, first, a little bit about myself. I have 22 years in this business, 18 years as general managers in companies in Germany and Eastern Europe. And last year in July, I took a little pause. And I said, I'm going to do two things completely different. One, I'm going to go work with a B2B startup because I really want online only, see what that's like. And the other thing is I'm going to go back to school. Now, my husband thought I was absolutely crazy because I have a master's in business, I have a master's in human development. He says, what are you going to do now? I said, we'll go back to organizational psychology. I said, well, why? You've worked in organizations, you've done this for the last 18 years. Why are you going back? And I said, because I want to take a step back from our business, and I want to look at our business, and I want to compare it with other business. Because in the last 10 years, I've served as on the European Association board, I've heard us talking about change. For 10 years, we're talking about change in Europe, okay? Every single Congress, everything, we come and we say, we have to change. And it's 10 years later, and we're still talking. Now, it's my first time here in your association, but I can tell you in the European, it's the same subject over and over again. So I said, we're going to look at it. I want to look at this from a completely different perspective. And I did this as part of my graduate degree thesis and said, let's look at our industry compared to other industries from a different perspective, the perspective of time. Okay? Now, Robert Levine is a very famous social psychologist. He went around the world and went to different cultures and different countries around the world and said, how do these cultures and countries deal with time? As organizational psychology, we've taken the learnings from him and said, how do organizations and industries deal with the aspect of time? Now, Levine said there's only 6 focuses of time. There's past negative, past positive, present being content, present preoccupied, future now, and future after. So how do organizational management and psychologists look at those compared to organizations and industries? Very simple. Past negative, the lending industry. Okay? The lending industry right now is living in past negative time focus. Okay? Now you can have more than one time focus in organizational management. It's a little bit more unusual culturally, but you can have more than one time focus. So lending industry, past negative and present preoccupied. Has anybody tried to apply for a loan lately? Okay, we just bought an apartment in Prague, and I have a pretty good job, okay? And you know, I made some money over the last couple of years. It was horrible. I got turned down by 3 banks before I finally got a loan. And it's all because of the lending industry having this past negative experience, which makes them preoccupied in their processes today. What's content? I do some work now outside of our industry with energy companies. Energy companies work really, their focus of time is present being content. Regardless of what they tell you in the newspaper of finding new sources of energy, trying to look at the future, they're not doing it. They're using now. I mean, the prices of energy are quite high right now, and focused on being content now, even though they're communicating. Future now, I love it. The presentation of James the other day, Future Now, perfect example of Google, okay? Bought YouTube when YouTube was making a loss, knowing that video was going to be better or be something big in a couple of years. A super future-focused industry organization. Future after, investment banks, okay? Venture capital, that definitely a focus of future after. So, where are we? Any guesses? This industry?
Past positive.
Past positive and present preoccupied. Exactly. Now, during this process, I did 100 interviews with executives over 40 companies in mostly Europe, but also in the United States, to try to get some of the results that I'm going to be sharing with you. In this process, it was questions, but also interviews, definitely past positive and present preoccupied. Why? Past positive, of course, we had the high margins, enjoying product recognition, hierarchical management systems, salaries, no customer demands. Preoccupied today, because we really don't want to leave that. Okay, we're hanging on to that positive past. Okay, and what are we doing when we hang on to it? We're putting too much focus on reforming the organization. We're preoccupied with trying to stay one step ahead instead of looking 3 steps in the future. If we're owned by venture capitals, we make the bride pretty, okay? And we focus on change when actually we shouldn't be focusing on change, we should be focusing on success. And that's what we heard yesterday, success. And if you focus on success, change will happen around you. So here's a little bit, this is a little TV commercial that I found. And I want you to just look at this and think, is my organization like this?
Иногда стоит сделать многое, чтобы все оставалось так же хорошо, как есть. Колбасы и мясные деликатесы от Черкашина. Однажды и навсегда.
Okay, it's a classic commercial, but ignore that. But is there a lot of activity going around in your organizations just to keep you where you are? That's the question I want you to go back with and think about. Now, I'm going to give you an example of an organization in Europe, in our industry, that was so preoccupied with itself that it really doesn't exist anymore, and I'm allowed to talk about it because I was part of it. Okay? It was the European Directories Association. The European Directories Association was a group, the European Directories Group was a group of countries, and they came together under one board, one corporate headquarter, and they had a vision. But their vision was preoccupied with themselves. Their vision was called Stretch 100. Nobody knew what that meant. Our board asked us to go out to our different countries and communicate that with the salespeople, communicate with the managers. Nobody knew what Stretch 100 was. Stretch 100 was the number the venture capitalists wanted. Now, a manager in a local in Sweden or Czech Republic can't relate with that. And European directories had such an internal focus on being preoccupied with themselves, they didn't think about the market. And what they did is they started out in a smart way, saying, okay, we're going to leverage synergies. And that makes sense if you have a group of companies for cost, processes to leverage synergies, but not to leverage synergies in marketing. Because these are 7, 8 different countries, completely different markets, okay? The process, with this process, what they did is they added 100 new employees. 100 new employees in a market where we didn't even have any customers, okay? And these 100 employees were now doing the business development and the marketing for these markets. And if you were a little country, like I was, then the time to market went from, when we did it locally, from 6 weeks to 1 year. What happened was they started to get in trouble. Then all of a sudden they realized they were top heavy. This costed a lot of money, slowed down the time to market, and the ship started to sink. And they sold off properties. It was the only way to survive. Now, I was in European directory 6 years. I had 4 CEOs, okay? That tells you a little bit how preoccupied they were themselves. There were some units that were quite good. Carrie's unit, which got it was a spin-off from European directory, is quite good, but the rest are still surviving. 2 properties doing quite well, Austria and Finland, and the rest, well, we'll see. That's what happens when you get preoccupied with yourself. Present preoccupied because you're trying to save the past positive, and focusing on preoccupied. Focusing on future focus is the solution. As we heard yesterday from James, success. What does that look like? Point to success and try to, then the change will happen around you, okay? Is future now is what most startups are, okay? If you think about startups, they're not thinking about today, they're thinking about what's going to be tomorrow, the next day, okay? Can future now be turbulent? Yes, it can be very, and there's going to be casualties, okay? But that's the way, if we want to move this business forward, that's the way we have to do it. So I'm going to give you another little film here, my favorite one, that really gives you an example of having a vision and mission and allowing change to happen around you. So as you can see, this is one of my favorite examples of just having that vision and allowing what happens around you to happen around you, okay? In our organizations, again, will there be casualties? Yes, okay? Will some people survive? Yes. But that's what we have to do. Instead of focusing on the present preoccupied, focus on what we want to see in the future, and it will happen. Now, is there any good examples of future now in our industry? Yes, and of course, we're going to go to the flavor of the day, okay? Flavor of the day, so local. So I think everybody's used this as a great example of a company which is really quite future focused. And when they're future focused, you can see their results, okay? Their revenues versus online weight is much better than other companies, and their EBITDA versus media reach is much better than other companies. And they're very, and if you talk to Monsieur Remy, you're very, very future now focused. Now this is the same slide Peter had up, and this is their philosophy. But I want you to look at this for a minute, okay, and see where can you see on here that it really is completely different than some of the other things we've seen. Where is it future focused? It's future focused in the B2B. This is a very typical B2C company who says, aha, maybe B2B is not as big today, but is going to be big in the future, so we're going to put it as one of our channels because it's a very, very lucrative market. Let's look ahead, the future now. They have one product there, but they're looking at other products in this area. The other on this chart, and if you talk to them, one of the most important issues here are not just the media brands, KPIs, and monetization, it's the people and the corporate culture. Extremely important to them in order to make future now work. If you look at their corporate culture, a map of their corporate culture, you'll see in the red, a lot goes around people. They very much believe that if they don't have the right organization and they don't have the right people, they can't be future focused. Values and management play a very big role. Talents and KPIs, people KPIs, play a very big role in this organization, which helps them be future focused. Now, in part of the survey, when I spoke with the 100 executives and the 40 companies during my research, I asked people what is the biggest obstacle to the advancement of their organization. And people came out as number one, 60%. Also, organization came out quite high, and time to market. But doesn't time to market also have to do with people and organization? So this is a big, big focus. And what are we doing about it? When you start to drill down in this, first if you look at this compared to what it was in 2007, that's wrong. In 2007, when interviewed by another association, competition, product innovation, customer perception, speed to market, legacy systems, and change of market was the worry. Today, the worry is people. But what are we doing about it? I'm asking you as CEOs, as corporate managers, what are you doing about it? In the survey I did, I asked them people how they hire, okay? And in the interviews with the executives, a lot of them didn't know how they hire, okay? Personnel, employees, HR employees, online applications, probably one of the worst hiring methods ever came out. Good for HR people because they don't have to work that hard. Put in a few keywords, and if it pops out, great. If it doesn't pop out, then you're probably missing somebody who might be very, very good because they didn't use the right keywords. Online applications. Headhunters, okay, I'm not a big fan of headhunters myself because they'll get you the candidates, but then they want to close it as fast as they can, even if it's not the right candidate. Promotion within. If you have the wrong people promoting the wrong people, then that's not going to help your organization either. Now, interviews with executives, quite good, okay? 50% said they did it, but when I actually interviewed, and I said, what does that mean? That means that after personnel department hires them, then we say hello and we give the last check off, okay? So it's not what it says to be. And that brought me to a second question, so what do you do with the employees? After you hire, which you might not be hiring the right people, what do? Do you have onboarding? Now, quite positive, 60% said yes, we have onboarding, okay? 35 said yes, minimum. Drilled down when asked what the onboarding was, most of the executives had no idea.
They get to fill out paperwork.
Right, exactly that. Absolutely no idea what their onboarding programs were. And what happens when you don't have good onboarding and you don't have good hiring, what happens is the communication breaks down in your company. And the communication is the only thing that will bring you to future now. And the communication, when asked these same people, is the communication in the management between your departments good enough to bring the business forward? 60% said no. Okay? So we're talking about products, we're talking about everything here in the last 2 days. Have you thought about your organization? Have you thought about the communication? Drill down more. Where, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is the communication the best and where is it the worst, okay? Thank goodness the best came out between sales and marketing. It should be. If it wasn't there, it'd be a little bit of a scary statistics. But it's still only an 8 from 10. It should be 10. Where's the worst communication? Between the executive office and the employees, or the executive office and HR, okay? That's where they said it's the worst. So that means, do we really know, is the vision of the company getting to the HR person who's doing the hiring and bringing the management in? Now, this is an example from this communication breakdown, and I did a little bit looking at some of the corporate structures within some of our industry. And on the left here is a company, and I prefer not to say which one it is. Paul probably know which one it is. Okay, so they have a chief commercial. Paul can tell us, okay?
Actually, they're called global. I think the word global sits in front of every one of those ones on the left.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Paul knows exactly. So, yeah, what's the difference between chief digital officer, strategy officer, business development, marketing, web development officer? Okay, who does what? Okay, who's giving the messages? Who's giving the message to sales? Okay, who's getting the message to management? Okay, you can't tell me with that kind of structure there's going to be one vision and one goal. It's just not going to work. Now, the one on the left is somebody not in our business. It's actually a global toy company, a really good progressive global toy company.
And on the right.
On the right, well, yeah, on the right, sorry, thank you. So, they only have, at the very, very top, a few chief officers. Then they don't have a level. Then they have no level in between. And then they have, very similar to what Apple has with product managers, okay? Very lean, very key, one message to the marketplace. We have a tendency to be on the left still. And what happens when you're on the left? Silos. You build silos within your company, and you don't have one message, not just to your management or your sales, but also to your customer. Okay? It's very confusing. And we talked a lot about sales today. I talked about a lot about sales training, but how are you going to get correct sales training when you have this kind of structure, when you don't have this communication? And when asked, and Peter, this one you'll like, when asked, do you do sales training? Yes, from the ones we get to 85% yes. I don't know who the 7% who said no was, okay? But that's a little bit scary to say 7% no, and 7% said sometimes. But asked, is that sales training future-oriented? Most said no. It's really preoccupied today. Are we hiring the people for the future? Are we hiring? Peter's example of the 2 sales reps, he was out, how they sold, perfect example of not being future-oriented. Selling only Facebook or selling only print and not thinking about what happens to that revenue in 2 years or 3 years, okay? And why? And this is, for me, the most shocking. When asked about leadership training and development, even though in our industry 85% are putting money into sales training, only 40% are putting money into leadership or management training, either individual or group. So my question is, you're putting all that money into the sales, and who's taking care of them after the training? who are the managers, who are the people? Why are we not investing more into leadership training? Because only if you invest more into the people who are taking care of the sales, then you're going to be able to move forward. So, just in summary, a focus on time, to me, is a much, oops, I didn't want to go forward. I did that by mistake. Can I go backwards? Okay. A focus on time is a much better focus. Get that, define that success, define that vision, okay? Change will happen around you once that's defined. Don't focus so detailed on the small changes. Focus on the vision. Let it happen, and make sure that you understand the processes. Make sure you're hiring the right people. Make sure that you have people in your organization that can focus forward and bring that organization. Allow them to be developed, choose the right people, and build teams, not silos. And I'll end it with our other flavor day.
Keys to Apple is Apple's incredibly collaborative company. And so, you know how many committees we have at Apple?
No,
0. We have no committees.
no committee.
We are organized like a startup. One person's in charge of iPhone OS software. One person's in charge of Mac hardware. One person's in charge of iPhone hardware engineering. Another person's in charge of worldwide marketing. Another person's in charge of operations. We're organized like a startup. We're the biggest startup on the planet. And we all meet for 3 hours once a week, and we talk about everything we're doing, the whole business. And there's tremendous teamwork at the top of the company, which filters down to tremendous teamwork throughout the company. And teamwork is dependent on trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time, but trusting that they're going to come through with their parts. And that's what we do really well. And we're great at figuring out how to divide things up into these great teams that we have and all work on the same thing, touch bases frequently, and bring it all together into a product. We do that really well. And so what I do all day is meet with teams of people and work on ideas and solve problems to make new products, to make new marketing programs, whatever it is.
And are people willing to tell you you're wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, other than snarky journalists, I mean, people that
Oh,
work.
yeah. No, we have wonderful arguments.
And do you win them all?
Oh, no, I wish I did. No, see, you can't. If you want to hire great people and have them stay working for you, you have to let them make a lot of decisions, and you have to be run by ideas, not hierarchy. The best ideas have to win.
So,
otherwise, good people don't stay.
but you must be more than a facilitator who runs meetings. You obviously contribute your own ideas.
I contribute ideas, sure. Well, why would I be here if I didn't?
So just compare what he just said to the statistics that you saw, where our communication in our industry, in our organization, where are the communication gaps between us, the executive management, and the employees. What did he say? The employees come together, the right people come together, they put teams together, and then they come up with a product. What do we have a tendency to do? Take a product, plop it in a team, and bring it to market. So it's completely different, and that's what I consider future-oriented. Okay, so thanks.
Is that what you asked me?
Yes.
Did I
Yes.
nap? No, I did not nap. I was exhilarated. So, what are your 3 takeaways from the research you've done, from the experience you've done? So give us 3 bites of takeaway.
The first is that the higher up in our organizations, the less that I really find that the ones I've interviewed know what's actually going on. Okay, what's actually going on with the employees.
So there's a disconnect between the
Disconnect.
reality
Yep.
at the ground level and what's going on in the marketplace and in the product development rooms, and what the CEO is saying to the board.
Exactly.
So that's totally disconnected.
So,
Okay.
That's one. I think that the second is that this industry, because of its legacy, and because of its lack of focus, still works very much in silos, okay? The communication between departments, I don't see teamwork. On the outside, on the surface, it looks like teamwork, but
It's
it's
pretend
not.
teams.
Pretend teams, yes, okay? And then I think the third thing is when you have that disconnect, then it's no wonder you have the problem with the sales, okay? And that starts with hiring, okay? Hiring practices are not exactly what they should be in the development process.
Why is it, do you think, that this industry, and I now have some appreciation for the newspaper industry because I do a lot in that space these days, but why does this industry believe it needs to build everything itself? I've seen a general pattern throughout this industry. Paul, you're going to laugh and chuckle, but really, this industry likes to think maybe because of the scale or because they thought, I mean, this industry has a build it ourselves mentality, not a let's find the best technology out there and work with them as partners.
I think if you go back and you apply what I talked about from social psychology to the focus on time, okay? We have the past positive, and what was the past positive told this industry that
They had time, they had money,
they did everything themselves, okay? And so what happens is if you really look at this from organizational psychology point of view, you're taking that past positive and you're putting it into the present preoccupied, which means that's why they think they can do everything themselves.
Which means you're going to go down like the Titanic.
Yeah, exactly.
Is anybody out there? Peter's got a question. Microphone. Thanks, Sam.
It's more than an observation and a question, but it's something that we have to build into this factor. And I'm not saying therefore everything is rosy by any means, but this industry went through the first decade of this century through mass change in the sense of ownership. And the industry was discovered when telephone companies decided that this wasn't core business, and the world of private equity discovered Yellow Pages and all the positive values that it had. So it became a very, very attractive industry to buy into, and we know that all private equity guys who committed themselves to being at least there 5 years, after 18 months they were in and out. And we went through long periods of management teams being only involved in due diligence. We went through long periods where, as you described it, Kimberli, we were making the bride look pretty. And we went through, in many cases, 2 or even 3 ownerships, at the end of which companies were so highly leveraged, there was no low-hanging fruit anymore. Everything was totally dependent on hitting continued growth, revenue growth targets and bottom line targets. And the management teams behaved accordingly. So they were not looking at the strategic direction of this industry, they were working on how do we get the next sale happening. Now, of course, then the recession hits the industry, and suddenly the bottom falls out. And now we have CEOs appointed who have nothing to do with Yellow Pages, no interest in Yellow Pages, no interest in the future. They're simply there to restructure to get survival. And thank God they were there, otherwise we wouldn't have survived. But then we had people who were only there for 6 to 18 months. That was a very clear set of circumstances, and they were looking to ensure that the business survived. Nothing else. And this was at a critical time for the industry when it needed strategic direction. Wasn't getting it at all, because the CEO and his team was dealing with the financial markets and enabling survival. And I think we were severely damaged by the fact that at a critical time when we needed strategic direction, we were not getting it at all. And the consequence of it all is that we have businesses which operationally are in good shape, but are suffering enormous amounts of debt, which still means there's strong likelihood of businesses going into bankruptcy.
But I'd argue that they're also emotionally bankrupt these days.
Well, I think that's a consequence, Neil. I think you're right. I think that's a consequence.
I think they are all very much emotionally bankrupt.
Yeah, but I think that's a consequence of what we've been through. Everything
I don't disagree.
described, I agree with it. But I just wanted to add that dimension in, because it was something somewhat unique to the phase that this industry was going through, which had a very damaging effect.
No, I think, Peter, there's no question about it, okay? And European directories was a very, very good example of, you know, a stretch 100 target that nobody can relate to except for the CEOs who are on the board, okay? And that target was brought down to the sales, and they didn't care about that. So yes, there are examples, but I would differ to argue that I think that operationally we are as good as we think we are. I don't think we are not as operationally good, okay? And maybe it's because of the damage of the past, maybe because it's the preoccupation of management, but that is a little bit over now. So now we have to focus on the organization and focus to getting it back right, okay? I look at other companies, maybe not damaged, but other companies with private equity that I've worked with, and I don't see the disconnect that I see here. But I don't dismiss the fact that it did have a lot to do with it.
I totally agree about the operational effectiveness. I mean, you know, as I shared yesterday, when the website is sold on the 1st of October, and it finally reaches somebody to actually begin building it 19 days later, because there are 17 handoffs from one department to another, that's operationally bankrupt. And as a result, it becomes emotionally bankrupt. Because somebody wants to, you know, somebody who sold it would sure like to see it be touched, you know, be fulfilled in a couple days, and so they become emotionally bankrupt, and it spreads throughout the system. And until real, you know, change comes into these companies and those kinds of processes are fixed, I think the industry is really on shaky ground. So let's talk about. Anybody have any other questions or observations? Kimberly's got 4 more minutes. I promised her 4 more minutes to get up here.
Okay, I'm going to ask my colleague David to please come up here with me.
David
Because,
Stafford.
okay, because we have, with the European Association, I've been president there for 3 terms, and we have an announcement to make about the European Association of Search that has to do with the European, my colleague, European Information, what is it, EIDQ, okay? Oh, yeah, okay. So the next one, you can just. So we, now, it's not working. So half a minute's already gone.
All right,
You want me
you're
to come
down
up there,
to 2.5 minutes.
Okay. I mean, everybody can kind of stand up.
Supposed to do business with you. I like your company, your company, your company. Keep it professional, keep it professional. Extra, extra, read all about it. Who is this new kid? And will it sound good? Keep it professional, keep it professional.
So, who is the new kid? What's the news? The news from abroad, from Europe, is that the European Association of Directory Publishers and the Association of Directory Information Related Search, we have merged. So it's not really that Dave and I have got married, but we have merged. Okay.
And what does that mean?
And that means, well, first a little bit about our members. Mostly European based, but we also have members around the world. We will be monitoring all EU legislation. We'll be working hopefully very closely with Oscar.
What's
and
the
very-
new name?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you in a minute. So, don't spoil my surprise, okay? So, we do conferences 2 a year. We will be providing market research to our members, industry market research, and collaboration with your association as well as with LSA in the United States. We're open to worldwide membership, and everybody has a right. This is different than our association in the past, where we had associate members and full members. Any supplier, publisher, whoever can be a member. We don't have member categories anymore, but we will have working groups and interest groups. No committees. Okay, so, and Biennial Congress, first Congress is in Florence in the spring. We don't have the exact date yet, right, David? So we will be announcing that
Are you working
soon.
on it?
Fall Congress probably in South Germany, and here's who we are.
This is scary.
We're the Search and Information Industry Association. Now, we have information because we also have many, many business-to-business members with us. And David, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I think you said it all, and certainly that is the new association, the new kid on the block, as
Yeah.
you said, and you'd be very welcome to join us in Florence. I'm working on the location and the dates.
Are you waiving the first year annual membership fees so people join? Isn't that how things happen?
No, there is a 25% discount the first year, and the members, yes, there is a 25% discount the first year. It's a little bit, there's pre-applications on your table. If you're interested the website is not up yet. Everything is planned for January 1st. The members of both associations automatically go to the new association, but there are new categories of membership. So you're welcome to take that. And because the website is not up yet, we can't do it online. But if you want to, you can either get it back to us, to David or I, scan it, send it back to us, or give it to us at the end of the day.
Hey, Kimberly or David, what do you see as the biggest benefit for being a member of this new association? If these people are out there considering being members, what's going to be the biggest benefit that comes out of this merging and then the new association?
I think the biggest benefit, first of all, we're very, very on top of industry legislation changes, and not just in European base, but also comparing it with the United States trends, and we'd like to start to compare it with the Asian trends. An example would be in the United States, there's a very, very big movement right now of absolutely getting rid of paper directories. Okay, they've had a lot of legislation trying to have opt-in. We'll watch that very closely. In Europe, there's been some movement in Europe, so we're watching that kind of legislation changes. Data protection, very big issue, okay? And this, we lobby, we have white papers, we go to Brussels, you're not supposed to say lobby, nobody lobbies, okay? But
Everybody lobbies.
and then we have market research. David, you want to say a little bit about that?
Now, what's the market research?
We're defining it.
Well, we're going to have a look at maybe something unique and interesting in our first quarter and present that in Florence. But I would like to add something that I know that Oscar has worked very hard on, and it's very evident here that we're all in this together. This is an industry where we can share ideas. Here already, we have heard problems and issues and opportunities, and when we can all get together and talk about them, this industry will go forward. I hear it in the local surgeon association in America. I'm hearing it now in Asia, and we hope to do it I think individually as associations we've got people together to network, talk about the issues and go forward with ideas and opportunities. And I would like to see that continue.
I agree.
Okay, so, anything else you want to finish
that's
out?
good.
So thank you very much for sharing both your review association